I think I just
Okay, so we are recording. Okay.
Yep. So you're moving. What else is new? You've transitioned because you're coming to the end of the end of the unemployment like run, which has been epic for like a lot of us that have been able to qualify for that. I mean, am I wrong?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that was also another thing is I think my buddy who hit me up I think he was more kind of hitting me up about like some work, offering me some work. Yeah, unemployment is getting real thin and it's starting to get a little sketchy, and then with moving it's going to be more expensive rent. But yeah, so fortunately he has some sort of outdoor work, so I think I can kind of do
Sure.
both maybe, or I don't know, do just the one. I haven't really been able to get the online money going yet, but other than that, yeah, we've been putting plans to put to maybe move forward with a patent on the tiles. We're still workshopping the name. The base floor was the original name, but now I'm thinking of calling them tactiles. It vibrates.
Wait, so I've seen the base floor. So like for somebody watching it, like tell them like what the project is.
Yeah, so it's basically it's a modular vibrating dance floor that lights up. Each thing is like a hexagon that's maybe like 6 inches tall, and it has plexiglass, and and like I said, it's in the shape of a hexagon. It has plexiglass on the top, and then there's lighting all along the rim. So there's like LEDs there, and we put a transducer underneath it, which vibrates basically with the bass of the music. And so the idea was originally to be able, like, for them to be modular, so you could make the floor as big or small as you need. But when COVID hit, it turned into like, oh, now we can just make socially distanced, like, vibrating dance pods, and so we can arrange them
like multiple
however we
units.
want. Do what?
Have like multiple units going at once?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so each one is only like maybe 30 inches from like corner to corner. So they're really not super huge. Yeah, and then like I said, yeah, it turned into a great thing for like, oh yeah, we can have a dance floor, and you can be sure that when you stand on your pod, maybe you and one other person are totally safe. You're distanced from everybody else, and it's easy to kind of do a dance floor situation. So that was kind of nice for that. Obviously, we're putting it back on hold because things are getting crazy again. But
right.
But yeah,
the more we get into the COVID thing, like, the more confident I'm becoming that it's actually gonna end. Like, as weird as that sounds, I think so. Yeah, like, because like the talk of like vaccines and stuff, like no matter how you feel about that, just that moving forward, the presidency changing hands, like I think there's a lot of opportunity for this to like end if we start acting collectively like responsible about it. I mean, I don't know about you, but like in February when this was coming out, I was like, don't believe it, fucking total horseshit, no way. I've lived through SARS. There's no way they're going to close the U.S. economy or international travel. I mean, like, I just got off the phone with my friend in France, and she's like they're in their second lockdown. They need to provide paperwork to go out, to even just to like do some basic shopping and stuff. I mean, totally different lockdown for them in the second time is like getting a lot more serious in Europe. But she was also joking around like the French are also like super like the worst people to try to like keep COVID free because yeah, it's like they just want to hang out and
every time. Yeah.
Drink wine and hang out and eat and fuck and be French, like.
I mean, it's like such a fucking weird thing. Like, I mean, I guess I can see, humans have been doing that, but yeah, I mean, just like I'm a lot of thoughts are popping in my head because I'm thinking about, what they used to do before germ theory, and they knew there was a scourge upon the land, is they would close all the gates and no one gets in or out to the town, and you just kind of wait it out. But I mean, even the the flu pandemic, only that was like 2 years. So it's like, and that was without any knowledge. Like doctors barely had just started washing their hands. We didn't even know about germs. I don't think we even had penicillin at that time, or we might have just come out
Wait,
with
wait,
it.
hold on. Let me stop you right there because you said germ theory. Because like I've been told now that germ theories was invented to sell hand soap. Like it was promoted to help to like sell hand soap where germs, whatever you can call them germs, but it's like the but bacteria, viruses, whatever they are, exist. And like what makes you sick isn't getting them on your body. It's like your immune system being weakened because you've have had less sleep, or you're a smoker, or there's a number of different reasons. You're stressed out, you're drinking more alcohol, you're not like taking ultimate care of your body. That's actually more detrimental to your health than like, oh, I came in contact with a germ and now I'm like just fucked up. Because like think about our mouths, like just the amount of bacteria that's in our mouths just to break down food and all the way through our gut. I mean, it's not like you could call those germs, I guess, if you want, but I don't know. I mean, I could be ignorant on germ theory too.
I mean, so from what I know, and yeah, I'm no historian on this, so I'm not, my knowledge isn't comprehensive, but it seems that the development started with people using, they were trying to track like how diseases spread, and I think as far like the first people who started considering that there were tiny microbes or something was they were tracing like what is it, diphtheria, some disease that you get from drinking contaminated water back
Okay.
in like London, and this dude traced it to this one like well in London that had some like either the shit was like the people's like shit pots, they were throwing it in and it was getting in the well, so basically they were drinking shit water. And then like that sort of expanded, so he did some science sleuthing and figured that out, and then little by little people were using microscopes and discovering that there were these basically invisible tiny little organisms living all over the place. And then Louis Pasteur and people like that started realizing that things were safer if you boil it and kill, and the reason why is because you're killing all the microbes that live in there. And I think it's only been in the past like 10 years that we've realized that that yeah, there are actually positive bacteria. Because I mean, when I grew up, and I mean, I guess when we grew up, it was just like bacteria are bad. You get bacteria and you know they kill you. And then little by little, we're learning actually it's way more complicated than that. And then the thing you're saying, I feel like that's only been something that we've started to realize more now that we're finally getting an understanding of what like how the microbiome works. Because I think I heard something about how, for instance, strep, right? You actually have the thing when you get strep throat, that's actually a good bacteria for you to have, and it lives inside you all the time. And there is something that it's actually out of balance. So there are other bacteria that live in there, and they create a whole ecosystem. And so there are ones that eat the strep, and there are ones that strep eats, and it's this whole thing. And when one of them like dies, strep is able to grow out of control, and they could die, I assume for any reason. Maybe you're stressed out, you're not eating right, or something like that. So it's this kind of new thing that we're learning where, yeah, a lot of diseases are actually caused by an imbalance in your body and not necessarily because you got it from someone. But that imbalance could also be due to exposure, I think, as well. So it's definitely very complicated, but
Yeah.
yeah. And I think, yeah, because I think germ theory is really just this idea of there are your sickness is caused by an imbalance in the amount of microbes that you have inside of you. And so taking an antibiotic, which we're learning now, broad spectrum antibiotics are not the best option, but they're better than no option. If you have some really out of control bacterial infection, taking an antibiotic will keep you alive longer.
True. Well, I
So
think it's true. I mean, I say true, but it's like a lot of these things I actually don't, I don't actually know. I mean, there's like there's not that many things that the only things I really know are like my pure experience and yeah, people are, I feel like, extremely opinionated around the whole subject of
Yeah.
COVID-19. And like, you know, it's just similar to like people that are like really opinionated about politics, but then you're like, so like, how does Congress work? And they're like, well, you should vote for
Yeah.
Bernie. And it's like, okay, you don't actually know what you're even, I mean, I know you're opinionated, it's great, but like, you know,
Uh-huh.
the lack of education following up an opinion, I think is like detrimental and super divisive, you know. And that's like what I've seen from COVID that's disappointed me the most is like, as if we were not divided enough before, like the amount of separation and like lack of travel, lack of trust, even like having your roommate say, you know, we're concerned about you coming back from San Antonio. Like it's valid, but it's like that wasn't a thing 1 year ago. Like one
No.
year ago,
Yeah.
that was like if you went to home for Thanksgiving, it was like, all right, cool.
Yeah. I could go anywhere. I could go to the most crowded club. And it's not like, I mean, there were diseases back then. There was the flu, which, the
Right.
flu has been deadly for years. We've been talking about having crazy flu epidemics,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was no worry about it. I don't think I've ever even gotten the flu, but yeah, it, I mean, that's the craziest thing. It's just like, and you hear this a lot too, that it's so many things that are converging all at the same time. Like we
Uh-huh.
have social media dividing us, we have like different governments coming in and dividing us, and then we have diseases dividing us. And it's just like we're there. Yeah, I feel like that we are in this weird post-truth world now. you
Right.
know
Right.
like especially when like I'm actually working on a song about this, but like um you have up are one of the most basically the most popular politician in the history of the world in terms of just people exposure or whatever. It may not be liked by everyone, but Trump clearly lies. He says things that are obviously untrue by all of the things, like any metric. Like you can look at pictures and just be like, yeah, there is no way that you had more people than Obama at your like what is it, his opening ceremony or whatever they call it.
Oh, right, right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Like it's just you there, and that's just one of like hundreds of things that he says that are completely untrue, and yet his followers don't seem to care about the specific truth. There's like other things beyond it, and I don't know, man. It's pretty nuts. It's just this like, how do you agree on who the experts are?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
because when you get into the weeds, I mean, it's like with germ theory. Like a lot of this shit we're just now learning, and there's a lot of it's contentious. What does this bacteria do? What does this chemical do? What is the effect of this medicine? Is it better than, like, how strong is our placebo? How much are we able to do on our own versus how much does a chemical actually work? And then you have the problem, like what you were saying earlier, with, well, we want to sell hand soap, so let's say that do more, like where use more antibacterial hand soap or use hand sanitizer. And I mean, before COVID, I never used hand sanitizer because I had heard that it helps create super bacteria.
Yeah, I thought it killed some of the good stuff on your hands because it's kind of like one of those toothpastes that's like really strong. Like it
Uh-huh.
kills everything that actually fights some of the cavity bacteria off. You know, because it's just like a nuclear bomb to your mouth, and it's like, you know, yeah, it might feel fresh and clean, but you just like you killed everything in there. You
Hmm.
know, so then it's like the good bacteria also take time to regenerate. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I thought on the hand sanitizer, but I haven't been big on the hand sanitizer thing. I do wear the mask. I don't think I've been sick, but I mean I do pretty much keep to myself in like where I live. It's pretty easy to be solitary, I would say.
Uh-huh.
At least the last year has been really easy to be isolated. Um and I took it real serious in the beginning because like I didn't know what the fuck was happening. I mean, there was just markets were bleeding, everything was going down. I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit, they really mean business. Like, you know,
Uh-huh.
like I didn't know what was gonna happen. But yeah, the hand sanitizer thing, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just being ignorant and I should be using it all the time. It's just like another one of those things where I'm like, I don't know, my body came here with nothing wrong with it. You know, like it came with the immune system that it came with. Like, I don't know that I need to like keep adding things to it. Like, you know, your body's pretty, it's like it's a walking miracle, really.
Yeah.
And like every time we like rub, you know, even soap or like things on our hair, like shampoos, like, you know, it changes our chemical makeup. And it's like, uh, I don't know that all of these are necessarily like, I don't believe anymore that it's like for our individual health. Like,
Hmm.
you know, I really
Yeah.
think we are like kind of turned into consumers, especially in the Western world. Like, and the biggest example I have for this is like seat belts. And like in the 90s, at least in California, like I used to go to school in an old VW Bug with my dad, and like there was no seat belts in that car because it was from the 60s. There was also no
Mhm.
seatbelt laws. But then they instilled the laws. My dad had to get the seatbelts installed, and it was like a big deal. But like, you know, everybody's like, oh, it's because they want you to be safe in a car accident. And it's like, actually, the real reason they made a seatbelt law is if you had an accident with people not wearing seatbelts and bodies went flying all over the highway, the cleanup cost of that accident is like 10 times the cost if people were like, even if they all died and they were strapped into that car and exploded, you don't have the biohazard like display all over the highway. And that's actually why they implemented it. And it's like, I don't know. Once I heard that, it was just hard to like put that back in the box around like a seatbelt, you know? Like
But
you
I
really
mean, have you corroborated that with like, you know, since we've instituted seatbelts, how much more or less deadly are regular accidents? Like, you know, for instance, if you're not wearing a seatbelt and you rear end someone, not bad enough to like, you know, kill you from the impact, but like bad enough so that you would leave your seat and fly through a window or something, or you got T-boned. You know, I mean, I don't know about seatbelts. I know the airbags and things like that are definitely safer, but you know, it could be both. I do know that cars really, like car makers, do really don't have our best interests at heart. You know what I mean? Like
right.
sometimes, like it's taken them so long to be able to introduce any kind of safety features. Like if we just removed all the regulations, cars would be fucking death traps now. You know, they would just whatever the cheapest thing is. Like,
Well, even like most of the new cars can go like 250 miles an hour. It's like, why? Like, literally,
yeah,
why do they have to go over 100? Like, I don't understand. I mean, I
yeah.
can maybe you want to go 95, you're on some road trip and you're like in the middle of the night on some highway, but 250, it's like that seems a lot.
Maybe it's efficiency. Do they put governors on there? Do you think? I bet they put governors on there.
I don't know. I just feel like if you have a Lamborghini, I feel like you can make it go 200, but
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if you're paying like, you know, $500,000 for a car, I
yeah, I
don't
guess
want a fucking governor on there.
upper
I think I
echelon
heard
at that
something
point.
about, yeah, what?
Upper
What
echelon at that point.
yeah. No restrictions, no
Yeah.
seatbelts in my bitch. But yeah, that's it's true. I definitely think, well, and that's, you know, one of the big issues that I'm also having too is that there is a lot, like the CDC is very like, don't do this, all the things you should not do, but they don't really talk about things that you should do. And I can understand that to a certain degree, but there's a lot of stuff about like different breathing techniques and different yeah, just different practices that you can do holistically, not necessarily like, okay, wash your hands 20 times a day, but like, you know, if you breathe, you can actually increase your body's ability to fight off disease.
Hmm.
And with COVID, we're learning that actually it's most deadly, the most deadly effects of COVID are from your own immune system. It's because your body's reacting to this thing and it's over attacking. You have this, they call it, I think, a cytokine or something like that. It's a cytokine storm, which
Uh-huh.
basically means that these these cells that your body has to fight, they basically are like nuclear bombs. So they send them in there to a small area and they just explode and kill everything around them. And so what happens is you get a bunch of COVID viruses in your lung, and it sends all these in there because it's overreacting, and it just creates all this scar tissue, which is why it lingers and why people aren't like, they still feel like they're fucked up even after the disease is gone and it's taking years to get back to normal. And I think that's why people who are old and people who are obese are having a much worse time at it, because if you're obese, for one, your body is basically in a constant state of inflammation. Your
Mm,
body is like, it can't fight. It's constantly fighting off, trying to get rid of all the poison that you're putting in your body, all the extra sugar and all the bullshit processed food ingredients. So like it's working on overtime, and then you throw in a new virus that you don't have any antibodies for, and it's just like, kill, 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 and it ends up causing collateral damage, which is why people are dying. Um, which I've been doing a lot of breath work and stuff that has been shown to actually decrease inflammation in your body and help your immune system be able to cope with what it has. So
do you feel the effects of it yourself?
I mean, yeah, to some degree. I haven't really tested it out on a sick, like being sick and having done it.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, I definitely feel the effects of the breath work just in my mind. I feel like since I've been doing it more regularly, I haven't really gotten sick. Um, yeah, and since I've been meditating and doing breath work, I haven't had really bad allergies. I'll have one spike up, but I mean, allergies are kind of the same thing too. Like it's your
Mm,
body picking a substance that isn't harmful to you, and it's reacting as if it is.
mm.
Um, and some people are linking that more people are developing allergies to foods like eggs or something. um, More and more, you're seeing more and more cases of that, and people are even developing it later in life, and they think that's because we're like, it could be the diet, it could be that we're over prescribing antibiotics and things. So yeah, it's definitely way more complicated than we thought. And just kind of like, oh, here, take this magic pill and your sickness goes away, is turning out to be like, well, it's a whole, it's what people don't want to hear. It's a lifestyle. You have to learn to change holistically your lifestyle in order to live healthier.
Mm.
um, yeah, which is kind of crazy. I mean, when you think about it, that's what a vaccine is. It gives you a little piece so your body can learn what this thing is. That way it doesn't overreact when that thing actually arrives. um, so I don't know. It's nuts, man. I definitely do my best to try to stay informed on like kind of microbiome and health, because I think that shit's really fascinating. But it's like the Wild West. People are learning so much crazy shit about it, and like developments are crazy. So people are saying this is like, how physics was in the 20s last century. It was like everyone was getting away with this mind-blowing new findings in physics and new developments. But um, now they're saying that's really going to be biology in this century.
Mm.
People are figuring out how we can hack biology and understand the microbiome and how you can do things. Because I mean, I think ultimately, if you have a really bad infection, taking something like a broad spectrum antibiotic, wipe everything out. But then you have to follow that up with uh, prebiotics and probiotics to help replenish the good bacteria for you.
Mm.
So like, I think a lot of people will just take antibiotics, and then if you go and start eating McDonald's and drinking Coca-Cola, you're actually feeding all of the bacteria that like sugar and all of these processed foods. And that's bacteria is what's really bad for you. And then they can actually drive your behavior to eat worse shit. you
Mhm.
know
Mhm.
it's crazy. So it's like, if you take something like an antibiotic or something like that to kill a parasite you maybe have in your gut, you definitely need to be careful and take probiotics and restrict your diet a little bit to rebuild it in the right way.
Mm.
But oh man,
I know it's heavy, dude.
it's crazy shit. But I think, and that it is true though. I think that there are simple things that you can do, like breathing exercises, meditation. And it doesn't necessarily have to be meditation, but just something to calm yourself down, and eating a little bit healthier. Like that kind of stuff can go way farther, because there are supposedly, they always say like healthy a healthy 19-year-old got COVID and died, or a healthy whatever. But
Right.
I don't really buy that. Like, I
Yeah.
don't. How healthy could they have been if they were just wiped out like that? But
Yeah, and
I mean,
people think that they're healthy when they're like they may not be. I mean, I know I've been like, "Oh, I'm pretty healthy," but, it took somebody to be like, "Wait, you're like going out 5 nights a week, you eat hamburgers twice a week, like you're not that healthy, dude."
yeah,
Just like kale salad once and again doesn't make you like healthy, you know?
yeah,
I mean, or
not being
active, I
fat.
should say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I don't know, and it's complicated because yeah, like, well, there you have an interesting thing too. Like, how do you define healthy?
right.
Like, there's no, I mean, it's this weird balance. How do you know when you're truly in balance?
Mhm.
It's because that's the thing. If you try to stand on one leg, there's a constant shifting. Like, that's how balance is, and it's just that the better you get at balancing, the less noticeable those shifts are. But your
Mm.
foot is making these little micro movements and
Right,
shit. And
right.
so that's really, I think, what balance is. It's like trying to you're adapting. You're like, oh, there's a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that. I mean, related to economics, it's like when you have your portfolio, the smart move to make is, if one aspect of your portfolio is outshining all the rest, you want to take some of that and move it around, because you
Exactly.
know it's one thing will be really high, and then it just takes one day, one bad move in the market, and all of that shit is gone. So
Totally, totally. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up though. I mean, that is something I spend a lot of time doing, is like looking at financial portfolios now these days. And the more and more I get into it, I mean, it's it's getting easier for me, but like doing that is harder than it sounds. Like
yeah.
the fear greed index for most humans in the beginning is, I mean, gosh, are we fearful and really greedy? Like when things are going good, most of us are going to say this is going to go continue to be good. You don't
Hmm.
want it to stop being good. It feels good. It gives you a emotional connection to your financial portfolio, which is like exactly what these big players want you to feel. Because I mean, they run it. I mean, they are completely in control all the time. All of the exchanges mainly, because every time that they make a trade for anybody, that's them selling their product.
Hmm.
So whether it's buying or selling to the exchange, like they don't actually care whether you're losing or gaining, because they're profiting either way. But like the more you can get into like withdrawing your emotion from it and zooming out on the charts and seeing like where all of the little lows are, you'll start to see. You'll be like, hey, this piece of whatever we're investing, whether it's a stock or a crypto, this thing keeps hitting $1.04. Like there's people intentionally pushing it to this level, but then hovering it right there. Like
Oh,
it's not going all
shit.
the way down. Like just look for the consistency of that. And basically, like that's what I've learned to be the most valuable technique. Not to say that it works every single time, but I mean, 75% of the time, maybe it's worked now. And like, even this morning, I took a chance last night, and I woke up this morning and I was totally right. And it's like, sure, it's not a huge come up, but still to wake up to be like, hey, that was $500 I made in my sleep, just by clicking some buttons on my computer. I mean, you and
Yeah,
I both know, like, we used to bust our ass sometimes fucking overnight downtown Austin for 500
yeah,
bucks for days, like 2, 3 days in a row,
yeah.
you know? And, but not to say that it's like, okay, just everybody jump into like investing or something like that, but there is technique, and I think it is very teachable and learnable.
Mhm.
um and I think that's part of like why I wanted to have these conversations with you and some more of my friends that are even interested in investing, is to educate people on how to do this properly. And it's not about, if you make $1 million, awesome. But like, what if you're just building up your retirement fund for yourself, or you're putting away an amount that's going to land you a house or the new car that you want 5, 10 years down the road? Like, I don't think people should be so turned off by the stock market and cryptocurrencies. Like, there's so much opportunity for people to make actual gains while at
Mhm.
home online right now, while there's there's a lot of free time for a lot of us. Like there's not much work where I live, so I'm pretty much basing all of my income like by trading and investing. And it's like, I'm grateful that I have that opportunity. But at this point now, it's like, I want other people to see this, because it's like, it's just so eye-opening about how the world works. And I don't know, like, I think it's going to be one of the things that frees us through this transition, if you will, with this like 2020 COVID thing. People are becoming more isolated to their computers, like it or not. But it's like, you and I, like, we kind of have a gravity towards computers or technology, whatever. And I've kind of always wanted to work from home, and now it's like, here I am, one of those like get what you ask for types of things. You're still not happy, but
Yeah,
still, what I think is going to bring me more happiness is like having conversations like this that are more educational about how to like share what I've learned by spending, the last 5-6 years studying this.
totally. And I mean, I think, you know, I think we're keeping in terms of the like pirate utopia kind of idea. I see that, I feel like what I really want to focus on with my work and, both artistic and otherwise, is creating a world where it's like that creative economy. And, there's a lot of work that we're doing that we don't realize it's work in all the social media that we're using, all of the tech. And like, when you go onto social media and you like or you leave a comment and stuff, like, that's all making money, but not for you. It's making money for the people who own the platforms, and they're not really helping any of us out. And I think that getting to a point somewhere that like we are paid for our data and like for the use that our data creates, is really important. And having I think the best way to get there is through cryptocurrencies, or through blockchain or equivalent type systems, where we have decentralized systems of like social networks and banking and other stuff, where there are checks and balances and there's transparencies in the right places, that we're all contributing and we're all getting back what we put in, sort of thing. And I think that will create a much more equitable system. And I think we need to increase the amount of literacy that we have in those realms. So that's why I'm doing the work, and that's why I'm excited too. It's like I want to hear about some more of that, and thinking about how we can, for not only for us but also for potentially people in our audience, to learn how to do this as well. We know other artists and we know other creatives, and it's like, here, you can start participating in these types of things. Like, I mean, like what you were telling me about Bancor, and like some of the stuff I've been researching on like Dai and I think Maker Coin or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's really interesting stuff about like, if you're in dire financial straits, or someone who lives in another country and they're having really bad inflation, it's like, doesn't have to be the end of the world. Like, and you don't have to rush, because it used to be like, oh, I need to go buy dollars. And I think less and less, that's going to be the case, less and less. Like, people are going to now, oh, I don't need to buy dollars, because the banks, the central banks of their country closed down. I saw this when I was in Argentina. That happened. They had a big crash in the 90s, and everyone, like, people there hoard dollars. I actually got screwed over because I just was helping friends. They're like, no, you should trade with us. Like, we'll trade you dollars. Because I actually paid them the government amount. It was like 4 pesos at the time for $1.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
I could have gotten like 20 pesos for $1 on the black market if I had done that. So in a way, I was like, I feel good that I'm helping them out, but they're kind of screwing me over. But you know, but yeah, so it's like that kind of thing that, like, and when they crashed, everyone was trying to get their money out, trying to get it in gold or get it in dollars. And there was just, nope, there are no dollars. The government put a clamp down. And so now you'd be able to like buy a cryptocurrency, and we wouldn't have these centralized authorities who think they understand our economics better, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
yeah, so I think
ultimately, it's just like it's value. So it's like we're putting value to the dollar, we're putting value to the euro, to whatever Venezuela's currency was, or Argentina's currency. Like we're all subscribing to that value.
Mhm.
now that there's like a shift going towards crypto or towards Bitcoin, like, I mean, is it worth anything? It's honestly just a computer code. But enough
Yeah.
smart people are saying, hey, I'd rather have those than these. That's the tide that's like turning right now, which is, I think, is super exciting and gives a lot of people a big come up opportunity right now. Like,
Oh,
even if,
totally.
yeah, I mean, it's just a solid buy signal. I think just it's so obvious to me that the dollar is crumbling and they are taking away cash. I mean, this is part of the plan of COVID, I think, is to, and some of it is for good. Like, there's a lot of dark money in cash, like there's a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
people that, do horrific things for $100 bills or, $500 euros or whatever, like,
Mhm.
and there's part of me that's like, I'm kind of glad to see that taken out of the equation. Um, because like, I don't know if you've like seen anything about the Panama Papers or anything of that, like, of that nature, but like, when you have the ability to print infinite money, gosh, you can buy your way out of like so much, like we've seen with Epstein type of characters, or he's probably like the worst we could come up with right now. But this, just all this money hidden overseas, like you can just literally make problems vanish, which is like, that's really put our world in like a shitty situation, a shitty position. And I feel like just with the internet, and I mean, there's things I love about being a millennial. I feel like we get hated on so much, but just having
Yeah.
like the capability to interact with each other digitally and just observing Generation Z. There's not too many kids I know of that generation personally, but just the couple that I do know, it's like they're just they're just next level. Like, they're already ready to, like, they're living in a different reality than like the boomers are, that is the world that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Like, if we, like, I hate to break it all down and make it like a generational thing, but the boomers are still in control, and it's like this old world is crumbling, and you can see them freaking out. Like, they don't know what to do. They're like flooding all these different new markets, and you look over at like these kids that are 17, 18 years old that are on TikTok. They're millionaires. It's like, those kids, though, we should listen to those kids.
Yeah.
Like, they don't give a shit what your gender is, what kind of sex you want to have. Like, they are so far beyond like anything that we, like, even myself, like, I'm constantly getting educated around sexuality, gender preferences, and pronouns, and race. And and it's like, it's really inspiring to look at a generation younger than me, and it's like the DNA almost of that human being is like, oh no, we got all this. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
not to say it's completely gone, but a lot of them are like just already there. Like, how many of those kids are trans? And it's just like, it's inspiring to see people like come into this life and be like, I know what I'm doing and this is what I came here for. And even if it is like a TikTok beginning, like, watch that person in 40 years. Like, like, that's
Yeah.
just a very, very small beginning for this person.
No, it's true. I think, it seems like a lot of the problem is really, I think I saw something, or there was a quote by one of my favorite guys, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but this guy's name was Walter Benjamin, and he was like one of the first people to kind of critique culture. But he talks about like the purpose of education is not really like to, fill you with knowledge and stuff. It's really to create a line of communication between different generations. Like,
Hmm.
we are the old people and you are the young people, and here, this is what we have learned through our life, and you also teach us by having fresh perspective and new eyes and understanding new technologies natively, because kids learn much quicker than adults. And so it's really just about that connection, and I think that's what a lot has been lost. And like, yeah, I think the millennials get a shit ton of hate, but we're just adapting to the structures that we were handed. Like,
Hmm.
college is insanely expensive for us, but for our parents, college was not that bad. Like, yeah, it was expensive, but it was like plenty of Gen Xers got like almost free. Like, their college was so cheap, even to go to places like Stanford. They'd be paying like less than $10,000 a year. Like, it's nuts to think about that versus
Is
like,
that true? Like, we could fact check that from like if they were in Stanford in like whatever, the late 80s or the 90s or something, or.
Well, I was listening. It was where I heard that was a podcast with I think it was Sam Harris and Eric
Oh,
Weinstein,
okay.
and they were saying that because they I think Eric Weinstein went to Harvard and Sam Harris went to Stanford, and they
Uh-huh.
were talking about how just like the amount that they paid for college, and they might have gotten certain scholarships and things, but like regardless, like whatever they paid is the same person with the same like intellectual ability and drive nowadays would pay way more for that same experience. And it's starting to look like you're going to get way less value, you know?
Oh,
And
100%. 100%. I mean,
it's
like, I love my little brother to death, but like he works in the public service, he works for the government, but it's like his college education, like I feel like my parents are like, just take that to the grave, that debt. Like
oh,
his experience, including his rent and food to support this person for 4.5 years through school in California at a state school. This isn't like Harvard or something exceptional.
uh-huh.
I'm proud of him for going, but it's like, what's the value of that? Like, maybe you could have got the government job without paying all this money. Like, it's kind of I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of kids I feel like I'm meeting now that are coming out of school and they look up to somebody like myself that didn't go to school. And I'm like, well, never heard that. But they're like, we feel dumb for going, basically.
Yeah, I sort of do. I mean, I wouldn't trade going to college, like I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot and I loved the experience, and I love the institutions, of higher education for the most part. Obviously there's a lot of problems, but I do like the structure, and I like that the idea of it. Like, yeah, we all come here and we're here about pursuit of like higher knowledge and like helping people by doing research and having difficult discussions and having a safe forum and all this other shit and educating young people and creating mentorship opportunities. All that sounds great, but the problem is that that's not what colleges are really about anymore. Universities,
Mhm.
it's like it's nuts. And the fact that like it is so damn expensive and it's so complicated is really like, I mean, that's one of the things that like they've been needing to have a reckoning, and they're going to like a lot of universities that have been around for hundreds of years are going to have to shut their doors, or
Mhm.
completely reverse what their business model is, because they're charging up the ass for nothing, like you're not getting anything. You're going to basically drink and party with a bunch of kids that are the same age. It's like you could just have a hostel somewhere and just be like, yeah, you can only come here if you're between the ages of 18 and like 28, or something like that. And that's the same experience of college,
Yeah.
without having to do classwork.
Well, like a
But
lot of people in the US don't do the gap year. And I think the gap year is like really, really important for people that are, yeah, I mean,
totally.
gosh, you're a kid between 18 and 20, like you're still a kid. And to go, I think to be able to travel a little bit, to go party a little bit with no responsibility at all, just to explore you,
Hmm.
I think is so valuable. Cause like, how are you supposed to know what you want to do if you just graduated high school? Like if I look at a high
Oh,
schooler now, I'm like, they look like an elementary school kid to me. Like
yeah.
like it just looks so different than like the world I live in now, And I mean,
Hmm.
that was me not that long ago, but I mean, it has been years now.
No, I
14
feel like I didn't know shit about how the world actually worked. I didn't learn any of that in college. Like,
Mm,
how to be like people kind like I kind of heard these like phrases like, as a musician you got to think about it like a business or something, but it never really struck home for me just how much like everyone really needs to be taking business classes and understanding just what business is and how money works and how the world works. Like you learn a bunch of theoretical bullshit in college, and it's
mhm.
largely and it's not checked because it's the ivory tower. It's separated from actually having to produce a product, produce something of value for people. When you're in college, it's very much like there are gatekeepers and you can play with the gatekeepers and kind of make your way into the right things. But I mean, there should be some way that you can make money, almost like an apprenticeship, where you make money by doing your work while you're in college and learning, in your
Right.
tutelage. Like they should like like I got a music degree, and what they should have been telling us was like, part of your degree is going out and getting paid by playing music, going out and auditioning for actual roles in actual things and getting actual money for those things and learning, okay, now that you've gotten hired for this, how much are you getting paid? And talking with all of the people in your college and like, oh, you only got paid that much, you could have asked for more, so maybe in your next contract do this. Or that's where you should be learning those lessons, like
Hmm. Hmm.
fucking up and being like, oh shit, I didn't get the right invoice, or this guy didn't pay me. Like, you should be learning that when you're young. That way when you're older, you're not making stupid mistakes like that and getting screwed over.
Hmm.
But it's almost like I've spent the rest of my 20s in an MBA, just
Sure.
trying to figure out like how I can actually get from point A to point, from wannabe to successful independent artist. And it's just like, I mean, and it's easier nowadays that there's YouTube. It's like you can learn damn near anything on YouTube. Like, just watch enough YouTube videos and synthesize it and try it out, and you could probably just do that for free now and get just better results than I did.
You can learn. I think you could. This. I think I agree, but like you can learn a lot of like technical skill on YouTube, which I think is infinitely valuable. Like it's amazing how many nice people are out there saying, "Hey, here's how you like change your alternator in this one vehicle." Like,
Hmm.
that used to be somebody's how they paid their mortgage was changing alternators. But like even in the industry that we met, right? So freelance industry, you've got some skills, I've got some skills. When you go to that job interview and like you nail down your hourly rate, like that's where it's like, dude, no one tells you how valuable you are. You know,
Yeah.
like it
No.
you, next thing you know, you're working for this company realizing, wait, they're getting $100 an hour. I'm seeing 17 of it. And it's like I all I had to do was say I'm worth 35. They might have given me 35, but like
Uh-huh.
having that confidence of like, hey, I have value, I can do the job. It's like that really, I mean, you could call that capitalism, but I just think that's kind of the old school capitalism where it's like, let's see how dumb this person is. And I really hate that about industry like that. Like I really want to see people be a little bit more generous and like not so I have to be on top, so all of you have to be on the bottom. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think any of us want to see like more Jeff Bezos out there. Like, I mean, we all like
No.
his work, but it's like at the same time, it's like, dude, come on, like you won the game, like
Yeah.
and Musk is like Elon is like he's a little better, but still, it's like, dude, like you've also won. Like, can you like seriously give back to some better organizations or like give us a little bit more insight of the value of people? I don't know.
I feel like I was talking to a couple of different friends about this, about, the kind of, especially the event industry and by extension, the festival industry and all that shit. And even like any kind of service and hospitality, because that's really all wrapped up in one. What we were doing is all just the service, hospitality, entertainment industry.
Right.
And after something like COVID, where all of us like have been realizing that we've all just been basically pawns in this bullshit game where everything goes up and we're all just fighting for scraps. Like $35 an hour, is like, was like, oh my God, that's awesome. But like, compared to what, like, and then you have nothing at the end of it. Like they can just be like, oh, we're shut, like events are gone and there's no protection. Like we're all just like out here with nothing, and it works as long as there's enough, events popping up. But they don't care about us. They're just like, yep, you guys are out, sorry. And it's difficult work, and I get it, like they're low profit industries. But I think, like I was talking to my buddy and he's getting tons of work now. He used to do a lot of festival production, and now he's just working for like like doing home improvements and all sorts of stuff, building tiny homes and sheds and fences and all kinds of shit like that. And he's making more money doing that and getting tons of work. And someone hit him up recently because he does work for Lightning in a Bottle. And someone hit him up and was like, hey, dude, you want to do some production work? And he's just kind of like, nah, I don't think so. And he said that he knows a lot of people in that realm. And when it's back to normal and they're like, hey, festival time, I bet that it's going to be like, let's talk about how much you pay people and what
Mm.
protections you offer and this and that and that and this. And I think we're going to have to see different, like a change up in the organization from like just I run this thing and I figured it out and this is how it works, and you guys, I'll try to pay the hands who help me as little as possible, And it's weird because like with the production job, there's no school you can go to. I mean, you can go to, I guess, Full Sail, but you really have to learn on the job.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's
half
almost
the job
laughable if
is
you
like,
go to a school
yeah.
like that. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I feel like, and it's weird because like you can be doing a job, the exact same job, we're all doing the same stuff, but like this kid's getting paid 15 an hour and this guy's getting paid, 28 an hour. And it's like, how do you reconcile that? And it's just because that dude didn't know to ask for more, but they're
right.
doing the same job. And I guess, you could say like there wasn't enough experience or something, but there should be some way, instead of like you having to speak up, but just kind of like, this is how the industry works. We'll start you out because it's going to take extra time for us to train you. And like, we might put you on a job and maybe you don't have the skills or the expertise, but there should be some way that you can learn to work your way up in the industry and learn from other people. And, or even just more collaborative stuff. It's very, I
Even
don't know. I don't know how to fix
transparent, like even if your first gigs are for 15 bucks an hour, you know that you're going to do 5 gigs and then you're going to get 17, and then you're going to do 10 gigs and you're going to get the next tier up. Like,
Yeah,
like let's make it just transparent where it's like, yeah, sure, maybe when you're new, you're not as helpful, but like give them opportunity to like get that get to that next level instead of just like, I mean, there's guys that I've worked with, and it's like I feel like they're underpaid, like severely underpaid because I don't know, they're like conflict avoidant beings. Like they're not like this alpha male Chad that's going to be like, "Hey, I need my money." And it's like not everybody has that in them, and like not
yeah.
everybody needs to have that in them. Like
No, it's true. I think a lot of that is also, it comes from like your upbringing. I think certain people have a higher sense of worth because of the way that their parents acted. And so when it comes time for someone to like, I feel like I was raised with a very low sense of worth. And that's just, that might be because, my parents were, poor Mexicans growing up and all of this stuff. And, they didn't know, like no one taught them how to argue and negotiate your rates and stuff. And so they didn't pass any of that down to me, in an obvious way. And I had to kind of learn that from just talking to people on the job and people saying, you can ask for more. I get paid this. And this is how I did it. I just went to the guy and said, hey, I'd like to charge this much. Or even like with TaskRabbit, I was hustling for 17 an hour. And then I talked to some dude on a job and he's like, oh, dude, same kind of thing. He was getting paid like $10 more than me. We were doing the same job. And he's
yeah.
like, dude, all I did was just raise my rates. And, in TaskRabbit, there was a thing where they kind of do a recommended rate, and they even have colors like, the typical person gets paid $18 an hour for this, and that's green, and they'll give you red if you're charging, $5 an hour, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
less, charging
Right.
$10 an hour. But they'll also give you red if you start going higher. And they're like, if you go in the red, no one's going to want to hire you. And I talked to this dude, he's like, yeah, I don't listen to that shit. All my things are in the red, and I get work all the time.
Hmm.
And it's like, and that's the thing is like, by changing your rates, and this is a crazy thing, is like people enjoy the work that they pay for. Like you value something more if you pay more for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also like if you set your rates low, what kind of clients are you attracting? You're attracting clients who are cheapskates,
So,
and those are the people who nickel and dime you. They're like, I'm paying you $10 an hour. I better get every cent out of it.
right,
Whereas the
right.
guy's paying 50 an hour, he's got money. He doesn't give a fuck. He's like, oh, well, you guys can go grab a drink or take a break. We can't do anything now. Like you can stay on the clock. I don't give a shit. We're
Yeah.
because they're not in scarcity mind. And so
Right.
it's like you charge more, you're
Right.
leaving that scarcity mind. And it's like we need as a society to realize that we can move into a post-scarcity world. Like
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
with technology now, it's like we can figure out solutions to like all of these problems. It just involves communication. Like we just need to talk to each other and realize that we're all on the same team,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, I don't really know how to do that. Like that's really what's scary to me now, is that like what we were saying, this post-truth, I almost feel like we're post-reality. Like it's just so splintered that like everything is creating these bubbles where this person can be in the Trump camp and this person can be in the Biden or the Bernie Sanders camp and completely be like they both are saying the same shit. They're lying to us. They're not believing us. Blah, blah, blah. But
Mm,
it's completely opposite. Even though they both feel disenfranchised and they're angry, but they just believe completely different realities.
mm,
And it's crazy because we have so many different things transforming all at once. It's like we really need to find us some sort of baseline. I think that's what the role of religion used to be. Used to be like, cool, you can be this, you can be that, but we all believe in Jesus. At the end of the day, we all go to mass and we all take the Eucharist and we all go through these, we do the 7 sacraments, and that's what unites us. We're all, God unites all of us. But now we don't have that anymore. We don't have religion to unite us. We don't have a common culture. And now it's looking like we almost don't even have a government that unites us.
right.
Just this
Right.
constant, like, not my president, I don't believe in it, and it's so polarized, and it's crazy.
Mm,
And I feel like in some ways it's good, that we're losing this 2-party system, because and more, I feel like when I was in high school, everyone was very much like, I'm a liberal or I'm a conservative or I'm a this or that.
right. Right.
And I felt like the weird one, being like, I'm not really either one. I kind of understand both sides. And then nowadays, I feel like everyone I talk to fits in that. They're like, I really don't like the Republicans, but I really don't like the Democrats.
Uh-huh.
And I have issues with this side, and then I have issues with that. I mean, hell, even Trump's not really a conservative. He's not a Republican. He's been Democrat in the past. Like, anyone who's really into Trump is not really for conservative values
No,
necessarily.
no, no,
You
no.
know, so
No.
but that's why I think, like, cryptocurrency, what it offers is, like, it breaks it down to the mechanism of, like, the beautiful thing about money is that it creates trust. Like,
Hmm.
if we can agree that this thing has value, I don't need to know anything about you, but I can trust that I can give you this good or service and give you some value, and I will get value, that I can then use somewhere else.
Right.
And that's huge. And I think learning that, what a currency is different than money. That's the
Exactly.
crazy, that's
Exactly.
the crazy shit, that, like, a
And
dollar has no
these are
inherent value.
closed loop systems, right? They're not centralized, they're decentralized. So, like, I can't just invent another Bitcoin because everybody else in the network is going to be like, hey, that's not a real Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just like invent money out of thin air. Like what they just did with the unemployment benefit. I mean, they had to do something, but they killed the dollar. It just killed the dollar with inflation.
Yeah.
You cannot just pump that much because, I mean, like we're talking about with the Panama Papers, like there's people getting out of ridiculous, heinous crimes because they're a multimillionaire, that they have money hidden in Maldives. Like that stuff needs to stop. And I think crypto gives us the opportunity to say, hey, in this closed loop system, like you have brought up to me before, if you're getting paid with your money is like thank you notes, the people that are getting the most thank you notes are the ones that are going to be successful because they're doing good, honest work that people respect.
Yeah.
They're providing like a good service that people actually want, not just like, okay, I mean, I've ordered from Amazon myself, so it's hard to like rip on the service, but at a certain point, it's like the guy's trying to kill Walmart, and
Mhm.
it's like, I don't know. I just feel like a closed loop system gives everybody else a little bit more of a fair chance.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also that there's oversight from multiple perspectives. Like, the problem with the dollar is that, and this is crazy, I just learned this over the past year or two, and this should be common knowledge, but the Fed is not part of the government.
Oh
It's like
yeah, no, not at
they're
all.
a
Completely
separate
private.
private business that gets to decide what happens with our money. And that people are like, some people that I've read have claimed that you can check movements of the Fed, like their actions, the things that they do, and see like direct correlations with wars and
Mhm.
famines and things like that, where it's like the Fed makes a decision, changes up the amount of dollars out there, and because the US dollar is the world's reserve currency, that the US may not see that much problem, but there's so many dollars in the outside of the US. And if we devalue the dollar, that just cripples the whole government, like a whole economy
Oh
in
yeah.
some, like, South American country. And it's like, whoops, and that's really who's going to feel it the worst. Like the states, like we may feel a little bit of that with that inflation, but it's really going to be like these poor countries in like South Asia and like South America and Africa that are going to just be decimated because like, well, now they have a bunch of useless fucking dollars.
Yeah.
And there's no plan. Like what they should do is like, let's print a bunch of money and then let's have a plan for when the economy is back to a certain state, we destroy a bunch of dollars. We limit the thing, or limit the amount of money that's out there. But they're not going to. And like it's nuts. They never go back. It's always one direction. And they claim, this is what happens with a lot of people and like the free market and stuff. Like they'll say like, yeah, you have to scale it back, but no one ever scales it back because we're greedy. And so
yeah,
that's why gold has been so important, because you can't just make up gold. You have to work for gold. You can't just make it out of thin air.
Right.
And so I think that's what like things like Bitcoin and stuff, it's like you can't make it out of thin air. It's written into the code. It's written in, like the mechanism is designed so that it only works this way. It creates a false scarcity in a digital currency, and that is out of any human's control. It's, if you want to change it, all of us have to agree to change it.
Exactly.
And what's cool about crypto is that we can create more fair systems of voting that are like obvious, where it's like you can't cheat the system, because we all can look, anyone who has the currency or whatever, if you buy in, like it's like with Dai or Maker, like if you buy one coin, you can now contribute and vote on how this thing works.
Right.
And so it's not up to some guy up here who's like, well, if I change this one thing, that might work out for my portfolio and I'll end up making a little more money. But which is what happens in politics, it happens in the Fed, all of these people, they're like making decisions, and there's no one that's restricting their ability to invest in markets.
Right.
But like, and here, I think that's what we really need, is we need people like, we all collectively agree by voting and by education and stuff that we can like, this is what we should burn some more of this currency because there's too much of it, or we should create some more of this currency because there's not enough of it and we want to keep it at this level. That's really the promise, and what I see is really exciting is creating. There's a thing that I heard, it's called mechanism design, and I feel like what we need to move towards a thing where we approach it almost like a game, where it's like, how do you design a game? Like when in football or whatever, in some game, when there's a player that gets so good that they are unbeatable because they figured out maybe some loophole or some style of playing that no one else can beat, they change the rule. They'll like, okay, you win, you get to have your championship title, but we're changing that rule so that the competition is more fair.
Right.
The problem with our economy is no one changes the fucking rules because it's not in their interest. They're like, well, I won, I made my billions of dollars, and in order, like, there's no one to be like, all right, now let's leave some room for the rest of the people and change that rule. It's like, no, how about I just pay you some money to not change the rule, and in fact change the rules to make it easier for me to get more money.
Yeah. The only thing about crypto that turns me off still is that it's so, people think that it's super heady or like need to have like a high IQ to understand it, and I just don't agree with that anymore. Like just by holding any Bitcoin or any crypto, you're now part of the blockchain, that you're a node that says I'm agreeing that you're part of this group. Like we're not printing more Bitcoins or more Ethereum. Like they're being mined, yes, but like just by holding it, you're participating in the network. And that's really, really important, because even now, as we're seeing institutional money come into cryptocurrency, some of these huge banks become big holders of Bitcoin. And like, that's what we really wanted to avoid in the first place, right? Was giving the banks power. But just to individuals, even holding a small fraction of it still puts you in a higher percentage of like where most people are at right now around it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not to say that I'm encouraging anybody to buy a crypto that they don't understand, because that's one thing that I see happen to a lot of my friends is like they get shilled this coin that's like, yeah, your friend made like a quick 20K off of it and they want to dump their bags on you and you bought it. And then I'm like, so explain, how does this cryptocurrency work to me? And they don't understand it at all, haven't looked at the website even, all they've done is
Yeah.
just given their money out, and a lot of those people get rug pulled, and it's like you land a bad taste in your mouth around it. But it's like just like anything else, you don't just like pick up a guitar and expect to be Jimi Hendrix. It's like
Yeah.
start simple, like start playing some Nirvana songs, go to a lesson, get educated on what guitar you just bought. Like, you
Well, I
know,
think the real value in crypto and where it's really trying to get is in useful applications, like so I think last time we talked there, I did mention to you something about like kind of NFTs or non-fungible, um, what is it, tokens or something like that. And the guy who is he's been interviewed a bunch. I listened to a bunch of podcasts with him. His name is Blau, or 3LAU. He's
uh-huh.
actually working on a music streaming sort of crypto thing, and it's like I think ultimately that's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get something that's usable, where you don't even need to know about the code and all the shit. You just need to know how this system works. And you're not buying it because it's like, oh, I can make some money by trading it. It's like, because I mean, it's like the stocks. Like, you're not really creating any value for society as a whole by trading and selling value. That's like selling fucking baseball cards. Like,
Sure.
it's the same fucking thing. But ultimately what makes it valuable is that, like, for instance, with BAT, like basic attention tokens, is that it creates an ecosystem where you're encouraged to spend it. And that's the thing with, like, one of the problems with Bitcoin is like no one's spending it. They're holding it. It's just hold it and then trade it for some money and then buy back when it's low. And you're just trying to make other money from Bitcoin. You're not really trying to use it. And I
Well,
think,
hold on, speak for yourself though, because like I've basically hold zero US dollars at this point, ever.
oh yeah, that's true. I just thought, yeah.
Like I only hold everything is in crypto, even if it's a US dollar coin, like it's always in the blockchain. And the reason is it's like, as I've spent enough time in this, when your portfolio has 4 or 5 different assets in it, and everything's going down except for this one, but you still want to go to the store and spend $100, like you should cash out the one that's profiting you right then.
Uh-huh.
And then like the next time you get some cash from your job or unemployment or whatever benefits you're getting, and other assets you're holding are actually going down, they're performing in the red, buy those ones. Don't go chasing the moonshots. It's like, that's like it's the temptation, obviously, but like it's literally that simple. Is like buy
Mm-hmm.
buy when it's dying, and sell when it's going up. Like, and that's all you have to do. And I mean, at this point, yeah, I don't know why I would put any of my money into anything else. I mean, stocks are a little bit easier, I think, to see value in, like, because you could say, hey, I love Netflix, or I love my Tesla. And I know a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people love Tesla and Netflix. So I'm going to put my money there. I'm happy to spend money on Netflix every month. That makes sense. Cryptocurrencies are getting a little bit more diverse, and they are a bit more complicated. But I feel like if people would take their egos down a sec to say, hey, this is a new ecosystem that I'm getting into, buy assets that they're understanding why they're valuable and how
Mm-hmm.
they're working, I just think everybody has a better chance of being successful. And it just takes it takes the learning curve down a bit.
I could see that. Yeah, and I think maybe that's where people get turned off, because some of them do, like for instance, BAT is a bit difficult to explain, like Brave
But
browser or whatever.
really, if you use Brave browser, like, and I hope anybody that listens to this at least downloads Brave browser, like, you will not get commercials on YouTube. Like, it's fucking sick.
Yeah.
Or SoundCloud, like there's no ads. And it's like, why would you want to use Google? Like, they are literally selling your data, as we see on these, like, the social dilemma document. It's like you're literally getting like used,
Yeah.
you know? So if you just use Brave, like the way that, like, we're going to try to explain it to somebody else is probably butchers really it. But like, you started using Brave browser, and then you started to understand the basic attention token, right? Because
Hmm.
you realize, hey, that tweet was really funny, I'm going to like tip this dude, 0.5 Brave, whatever
Yeah.
that, you know so like, it's just like, I think it's like giving people that app, like, in their hands, that they can learn how they learn. Because I don't learn how you learn, you don't learn how I learn. Like the way that we both came into like the audio visual industry is like, we just geeked out on the things that we liked, and that's what taught us our skills, right? And
Hmm.
I think it's the same with crypto. It's like it's new, but like put it in somebody's hands, let them see how it works. Like you said, you bought $20 worth of Bitcoin at one point, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, that's $40 now? Like,
Yeah.
man, maybe I should have put in 2000, or like,
Yeah.
but like that's how we learn, like as individuals, is you
Mhm.
we all, I think, uniquely learn in our own ways. And like crypto is like it's like I'm so passionate about it because I just think it like is a floodgate for like, I just imagine when some of these Gen Z kids get into it, or even millennials that are like just brilliant humans, and they start using it differently, like you're saying with your friend producing the music crypto, or my friends at Super Rare that are like, there's like digital art paintings that are getting sold for thousands of dollars, like just as collectibles for people that are in the ecosystem. And I
Yeah.
just think that's super exciting. Like I would have never thought of doing something like Super Rare, like ever, but like John, my friend, got turned on to cryptocurrency, and it's like his, like the way his mind works super different than mine, and he's like formulated this whole business around it that's brilliant. And I think other people are going to start modeling off of him, but just giving people the access to it, I think will, I don't know, I just think I'm like really stoked for the future, like the next like 2 to 3 years, to see what comes of cryptocurrency, because now it's started to like lose its bad rep, like like the whole Silk Road thing, and there's like all kinds of things about the dark net around it, and those things all may be true, but it's like, let's be honest here, like you know uh criminal organizations are like always like on the forefront of tech, and just on like what's happening and what controls the world, like
Mhm.
that's like the, like it or not, that's the state that we're in right now.
Yeah. I think, what's really good about Brave browser is that it introduced, like, because I think the big fear, and this is with not just crypto but investing in general, is like getting into it. It's like, yeah, there's this perception that's way over your head and all this stuff, but you're gonna get fucked. You're gonna lose all your money.
Mm,
And what's nice about Brave browser is that, like, just by signing up, just by like downloading this, you get a little bit of crypto. It's not a lot. You're not going to pay your rent with it, but I think it's like, oh, I just made some money. I made $10, and all I did was look at ads. I didn't do anything. They paid me for my attention, because my attention is what people want. It's valuable. And so
right.
I'm creating value by giving attention, so I should get paid for it. And I think that's a good model in the future to learn, because Bitcoin's a bit steep. First off, you have to learn about what it is and all this stuff, and then you gotta, buy it, which is a little like, oh, you gotta get a wallet, and what's a wallet, and what's this? You gotta get
Sure.
this, and it's all these things. But like, you know, it's really not too hard once if you have a good tutorial, and Coinbase makes it really fucking easy. But like, yeah, with Brave and I think stuff like that, it's like just by participating in the ecosystem, we give you a little bit. And if you want to participate more, you can make more. And
Mhm.
you can
Mhm.
now you can and then you can write an app, and you can do this and you can do that, and you can contribute. It's just like the economy, like, except just by being there, you get a little bit, because
Right.
your participation at all is worth something. And I think that's kind of like how we need to uh, incentivize it and create apps that are very easy. It's like the internet. The internet used to be really hard to use, and the interfaces were lame because it was all made by coding, software engineers who aren't designers. And so it took a while for your average person to learn about what the internet was and how it worked. But then eventually, Yahoo and AOL came out, and then Google, and it's like, oh, I get this. This is really simple and easy. And I think
Mhm.
crypto is going to be the same way. It's just like we're waiting for that one coin or that one app or whatever that's just going to take off, and then it's going to explode. And it'll probably be some development of Bitcoin, I think, just because it's the oldest. And I think I've heard there's new developments with Bitcoin to make it faster and easier to use, but it'll be something like that. And then it's really going to click, and you can't stop it.
Yeah.
The only, yeah, I just don't
Well, I
see
think
how it could
Bitcoin
be.
at this point should be likened to like actual gold. Like
Yeah, I
it's
see
gonna
what you
just
mean.
serve as like, you need to have the one thing to base value off of. And like the network is slow. The code was written in 2008.
Yeah.
Like most people don't know this, but like Occupy movement didn't die. Anonymous Mask didn't die. It created Bitcoin. Like it
Oh,
freed
that's
us
crazy.
from the, financial system that everybody was protesting about. And the cool thing
Uh-huh.
is, like, we don't need everybody to be a brilliant computer scientist. Like, when all those people were going to the streets and were wearing the masks and they were protesting, it was obvious how many people wanted change. And it's like, I don't think these guys that are computer scientists, these hackers, would have actually gotten off their asses, put their egos down, and got together and sat down together and programmed this as a collective if there weren't that many people saying, hey, this is not working in Europe, in the US, in South America. Like, if you remember 2008, I mean, we were both young, but I remember going to, like, even at my parents' house, and my dad being like, holy shit, like, this is like nuts, and Oakland was going insane and like burning the place down. I mean, it was like very, very exciting and confusing, right? So
Yeah.
it's like everybody plays a role. Just like if you go to like a concert, like, you being in the stands or being a fan at the show may not feel like very significant, but holy shit, it's like just as significant as being the guy on stage playing bass. Like, it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like that, but like, it is that way. Like, we are all one, we have a role. Don't be envious of other people's role, because the guy playing bass is probably like, fucking A, I wish I could just have a beer with my friends and smoke a joint and watch some live music. Like, he's probably, I'm
Uh-huh.
so sick of being on tour and like, so
Mhm.
like, everybody's role is very, very valuable and important. And I think crypto serves as the same thing. Like, even if you hold a fraction of a Bitcoin, you are part of the network that's certifying this whole thing to go round. So it's like, it doesn't matter if you're in the crowd at a Dead show. Like, a lot of the guys on stage at a Dead show, they're in the band or whatever, probably just want to be dancing like you do, like.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you're right. Maybe that is something that we can kind of like imagine, like a world where it's like all of the ills of whatever, politics or science, and, does this give you cancer and that and this, but like in crypto, if we can find something that's really easy to use, like using the fundamentals of the fundamental idea of blockchain, and whatever other technology could emerge similar, I think that can create a level of trust where we can agree on a reality. It's like we may not be able to agree. I may not agree with politics, or do you believe in God? I don't believe in God.
Mm.
Whatever, or man, you shouldn't be able to change your gender or whatever. We may not be able to agree on any of that, but we can agree that this thing is worth this, and that you can't fake it because the blockchain prevents you from doing it. Like, you can't make one up out of nowhere. You can't game the system. You have to play the same rules that everyone else plays, because that's just the design of it, like, you can't change it.
Mhm.
And we agree on that because otherwise we're all going to die. Like, there's no way, if we can't agree on shit, then there's no way for us to interact.
Yeah.
uh,
I like
so
that though, like the currency of the future being like trust based, like, I
uh-huh.
think, you could call it relationships or you can call it, but I like it. I actually like it to be trust, because like, I think it'd be cool to be in a postmodern world where you're like, look at Uber. Like, I just took an Uber today. I'm trusting this person to like come and pick me up. And like, there's so many ways that we can prove this trust. Like, this guy's given 1,200 rides, his ratings above 4.8, whatever. He's great for a conversation or what, but like,
Uh-huh.
we can extend that like further and further, so that like, how do we, not even like that, how, but like, I'm excited to see the trust get extended to individuals as we go. And it's like, it really needs to be trust based right now, especially with COVID. You know,
Oh
like,
yeah.
nobody trusts anybody anymore. But
No.
like, but this isn't like the present moment never stays the same, at least in my experience. Like, it's gonna keep evolving. So
Oh yeah.
like,
I'd like to do a deep dive at some point on that book I read, Radical Markets, and the guy with the writer Glenn Weil.
yeah,
He has some really interesting shit about like where he sees it ultimately going, and it's something about like, because he has a system where you would get voice credits. So imagine, you vote, your voting is a cryptocurrency, so you vote with this like cryptocurrency.
yeah,
And he was thinking that eventually, according, he has a bunch of other ideas and principles, but if they all work together, he imagines a world that where you wouldn't even need money. You would just use these voice credits, and you would essentially pay for credits, but you would, it would be under all of these different levels of trust and all of these different things where it's not like the problem right now is that wealth, you can't trust anything because the wealthy don't share. There's no way that you can make sure that, you know, if I'm in a game or whatever, if I'm suing Jeff Bezos, how do I know he's not paying the judge and paying the whoever or whatever? Like if I'm
Right.
caught in a thing, it's like I can't beyond a shadow of a doubt know that. But if we're using cryptocurrency and blockchain and stuff like that, like I can know. I can be like, you know, in smart contracts and things. It's like, nope, you can look at the code. Like, let's observe what does the code say? And it turns out, yeah, like now it's just my word against yours kind of thing or whatever. Like, and there will be more trust to that. But yeah, and I'm obviously I need to research the ideas more, but I mean, he would be an interesting guest to have on at some point too, and just kind of explore more of that realm. You know, I think that's what I want to do with this kind of podcast is like take both of our vocations as artists and then use our art and our discussions and research to imagine a new reality where we can build a trust like this and we can be free to create and imagine cool shit, you know, that is useful for everyone and holistically healthy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you're already doing it, dude. I mean, we just, you're
Yeah.
gonna look back on these like calls 2 years from now and be like, oh my God, that was like, sowing the seeds of where, wherever we become 2, 3, 5 years down the line.
No, man, I totally, yeah, I'm excited.
Dude,
Like
so
excited.
this was super awesome. Like, thank you so much for like lining it up. And I know we went over an hour, but we're still recording. So I don't know.
Oh,
I guess that worked.
cool. Yeah, badass. Yeah.